So this is a nice combination of notes.
Dr. Mallik, tell us about when you first came to Trinidad. What was that like to come from India and then to come to a place like Trinidad? What was your first impression?
I came to Trinidad, the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. I was a music teacher come performer. I was selected to come to Trinidad and teach Indian classical music through the High Commission of India. And with all formalities, it was a lot of formalities. I was working in a college, in a graduate college, and I was teaching bachelor's, master's classes also, and I had a permanent job. And so I had to take leave for 3 years, and then we got a contract for 3 years to come here. When I came here, it was so different from so far away. We thought we are going to a foreign country and people will be different. But when I came here, and we in Mahatma Gandhi Institute for Cultural Relations, MGICC. So I was the music teacher performer there. When I first met my students, I said, well, they look like us. It was all Indians and they looked like us. But only when they speak, you hear that the English, and then you know that they are not from India. And the best thing, was when I first sat in a taxi and I heard the Bollywood songs, from old Bollywood songs like, Shamshad Begum and all. We were just, eyes popped out. Said, oh my God, we can hear these songs. We can't even hear them in India now. It's like modern Bollywood songs. But these old songs we were hearing, and it felt very nice. Yes. So basically, why I stayed in Trinidad, why I stayed back, I would have gone back, and after 1 or 2 years, there was a chance of going back. But the culture of Trinidad, because I find the Indian culture so much entrenched in the environment here. That Diwali is celebrated, Holi is celebrated, Phagwa, they call it Phagwa. And so I said, well, also there was a need, for some teacher who knows Indian classical music to explain to the children here, all the singers here, the nuances of Indian classical music, so they could perform better.
Right.
That also, I felt there was a need.
Yes.
And so in all these 16 years I have stayed here, Dr. Henry, I tried my best. Whoever came with a commitment to learn, music, I tried to help them out to the best of my ability.
So, so you came in and you were working with the Indian Cultural Commission, and then UTT came along. Tell us how you showed up, how you came to UTT.
Oh, that a very interesting thing which I must tell you. Now, I had learnt Indian classical music, pure Indian classical from Agra Gharana. So I was very deep into Indian classical music. But I never sang any devotional song which they call a bhajan. Now, when I came here I see everywhere only bhajan is popular. And the High Commissioner told me sing a bhajan. I don't know a bhajan. And so, what to sing? So I had to select those classical music compositions which had the name of God, and nobody knew here. So I was just singing them as bhajans till the first bhajan I learned. But that is the contribution of Trinidad. Look, I started learning bhajans, and I made 2 CD of bhajans. Here I composed those 2 CDs, and I launched them here. And so everywhere in the world now it is playing. So this really is the contribution of Trinidad. Yes.
Lovely.
So now even before, so I was at one time, I don't know whether I should say, but I will tell you this because there's no harm in saying, we had become so popular that the director used to get angry with us because people are asking us to come and sing. They are not asking the director. The Mahatma Gandhi has a director through which we come. And even the High Commissioner, Mr. Sapra, he commented that you all are so popular, everywhere he goes, he hears about us. So that was the impact, and I started learning classical music. Now, one day I was singing Nrityanjali theatre, Mandira and Satbalkaran. They had asked me to sing, and Dr. Pat Bishop was invited to that program. And I sang a small rag called Maru Bihag, a small piece, they like classical music. When Pat Bishop came on the stage, first time, who is the lady who sang? She was so impressed. And then, when she saw me, and she said, you are such a small lady with such a big voice. She called me a small lady with a big voice. And since then we became friends. And the Lydian singers, the first, I started teaching the Lydian singers. So I would go sometimes and teach them. And remarkable, they lapped up all the music, what we were giving them. And Dr. Pat Bishop and I, even when I was in Mahatma Gandhi Institute, her Lydian singers and my singers, we sang one song, one Bollywood song, but it was a bhajan, a devotional song. And Dr. Henry, you won't believe, my students were looking at the paper, and Dr. Pat Bishop's students, they learned the song, even though it was not their language,
Right.
And that was a big success. So, then Dr. Pat Bishop, she went to my director, Mr. D'Souza, and told him about that. She said that we are starting an academy for the performing arts, and I cannot start this, we need Dr. Mallik. So I'm taking your permission. So even before my 3-year contract finished, I had the job in the university. So now there was no academy for performing arts. Actually, it was just being now thought about. One day, Dr. Pat Bishop called me to Professor Julian, and we had a meeting. And she told Professor Julian, I cannot start this academy for performing arts without her. So Professor Julian, how in his way, he said, well, we don't have any academy for performing arts now. Now means it is now being made. But if you want to employ her, just employ her. And so it was Professor Srivastav Dr. Srivastav, he took my interview. And during the interview, he asked me to sing a piece, which is a very sad piece. It's called Rag Bhairavi. And he was crying. And so he said, you brought tears to my eyes. And there was this HR person, who was Brent, na? He said, now Dr. Mallik, he also felt the energy and he said, we have to be very careful when you are singing, you change. And that is what Indian classical music is all about, it can impress your mood and all. So, and then that was it, I was appointed, and the Academy for the Performing Arts, and that was a very beautiful journey, very beautiful journey.
So, over your time at the Academy for the Performing Arts, you've been running the Certificate in Indian Classical Music, Sangeet Prathama.
Sangeet Prathama. And
so tell us about that program and the aims of the program, what you were trying to achieve with that program of teaching.
So we were planning to start a BFA, and we were planning to start a certificate in Indian classical music. But the BFA, due to many circumstances, it could not happen.
And just to clarify, a BFA is a Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Bachelor of Fine Arts, yes. So we were initially we were having that in all kinds of classical music, and then due to some we couldn't do that. But then we started the certificate in Indian classical music. Now the certificate was exclusive to Indian classical music, and we tried to make it so that any singer from Trinidad who learns this will know the basics of Indian classical music and will be able to sing whatever they sing. They like to sing bhajans in temples and all. So they would be able to sing it correctly. They would know about notes and about musical forms and all. That is why we started. And it was a great success. In all these years, I think about 55 students we taught for this course. And I hope they will, and some of them are composing music, some of them have opened their own schools and guiding further. So this is how we tried our best to do.
You know, as a teacher myself, I often find that I learn things from my students as well as teach things to my students. So what are some of the things that your students, your Trinidadian students here have taught you?
What my Trinidadian students have taught me? Well, they really didn't teach me anything, but they gave me a lot of love, Dr. Henry. That I can tell you. My interaction with them has always been like a mother, you know. They always, some call me Guru Ma, some call me, you know, and Guruji. But they have given me a lot of love, and maybe I learnt love from them, you know. That so much of faith and so much of love they had for me, that probably, because in India I used to teach in a college, but I never taught privately.
Right.
Because I was too much involved in my music and all. So when I came here, the scenario changed. And it was, you know, individual. So anyone and everyone calls me, you know, every 2 or 3, 1 or 2 calls I used to get, you know, they want to learn music and they want to learn music. But again, you know, Dr. Henry, wanting to learn music and the commitment are two different things. Everyone cannot have that much commitment to learn. You know, it is either you know the basics, just to learn a few basics. That doesn't really help in when you want to learn music. You need to have some commitment, some practice and all.
Why is that commitment so important?
Why the commitment is so important is because the concentration needed to learn Indian classical music and amount of practice. Remember, when you have to interact, when you have to understand a note, it has to register in your mind, in your soul, in your psyche, and for that you have to keep on doing it again and again. That is the simple procedure we were taught, that any note you have to practice for hours and again. So that kind of culture and environment is there in India, but it was not there in Trinidad. You know, when you tell them, students, how long you practice? 5 minutes. Now in 5 minutes nothing happens. So you know, basically all those students, Dr. Mallik, we want to sing like you. So I used to say 40 years, 8 hours a day, and you will sing better than me. But that much of commitment is needed. Anyone doesn't even understand, you know. They think it is so easy. You come and you just learn a few notes and then you can sing as, you know, Lata Mangeshkar or as a very good singer. Right. But it takes a little commitment. Yes.
It does. So I'd like to change topics for a minute and talk about different kinds of music. You and I have had a lot of conversations about music. Yes. And recently we had a little exchange about Paran. What are your thoughts about Paran as a Trinidadian music?
It is very lively. One thing I like about it, and well, maybe there is some, because we hear it next to Christmas, so it, you know, gives us a very, you know, a festive, you know, that Christmas has come now, and so I like the beat, you know, the beat is very good, yes.
Yeah, okay. Since we started talking about Paran, I want to talk about a couple of other aspects of Trinidadian culture, just random things. So, food.
Yes.
What's your favorite Trinidadian food?
As I said, well, we were discussing, I like the macaroni pie, and maybe once in a while, no, I like the aloo pie, you know. I like the aloo pie, I love the aloo pie. Yeah, more than the doubles, I like aloo pie. Okay. So that is very good. And baigani I like. They make anything without garlic, because I don't eat garlic. That's why I could not relate much to Trinidadian food, but I have some students, they used to cook without garlic for me and without onions for me also sometimes. And I enjoyed their roti. I like the dal puri. I love the dal puri. We have something like that, in India. We have a dal puri type of a thing. Basically, it came from India only.
Right.
So the chokha, there is the chokha and all that is available in India.
Right.
In Bihar, basically a state of Bihar, that is the cuisine there.
Nice.
Yes.
So, do you drive, Dr. Mallik?
I tried to. Well, I have a driving license which I use as an ID. My car teacher, scolded me and said, drive. She was actually basically controlling the thing, and I drove to Port of Spain and all, but I really did not. Well, my student Akash is a very good driver. What I call him? What is that car race driver?
Mario Kart.
No, Akash, the one who became, who got ill. Michael Schumacher.
Okay.
That is the one, na? Yeah, he drives very good. So, yeah. So, well, I didn't drive, but you won't believe, I have some taxi drivers who have become my brothers. So they are well like family for me.
I can imagine being alone in a foreign country has its challenges. And you've always struck me as somebody for whom family is really important. And I have to tell you, I feel so touched and blessed that, I can reach out to you as a mother and as a sister.
And thank you. And Dr. Henry, we when you came in, we also had some arguments and all. But through those arguments, a very good relationship developed.
Absolutely.
And that is what I'm so grateful for.
And you taught me a very important concept that I still hold in my heart, which is that there's music that feeds the senses, and then there's music that feeds the soul. And if you can maintain that distinction, then you always know where you're going. Talk a little bit about that concept, because people need to hear you explain this.
What happens is there are different levels of consciousness. When there is soul consciousness, there is the mind consciousness, there is a intellectual consciousness, the brain, which we call the buddhi consciousness. So there you are only analyzing everything with your intellect, So the mind has a little bit of emotion also and intellect both. So what happens is earlier when I was small, I used to like Bollywood music. I never liked classical music at all. My parents used to sing, but we used to run away from them. You won't believe, I never wanted to be a singer. In Bengalis, I'm a Bengali. Now the girls, they say when the girls should know music, so they will get a good husband, they will get good married, and mothers want their children. So my mother wanted me to learn classical music and sing, and she called a music instructor and we asked him to go back, and then she beat us very bad because I didn't want to learn music, and I told my mother I'm not going to learn music at all. But see, when the Lord wants it, you have to do it, whether you want or not. So what happened is, then at one point of time I was learning Hindi and it was becoming difficult. I was not getting good marks. And somebody told me, if you take music, you will get very good marks. So then I went and told my mother, and the teacher used to come to teach my sisters, because I said I'm not going to learn classical music. So my mother said, well, no, you think music is so, you will fail and you will bring shame to our family. So Dr. Henry, my mother said you cannot take music. And I quietly went to my father. My father was a very good flute player and very good musician. So, and a doctor too. So I quietly said, you just tell me whether I can do it or not, and then I will manage the rest. So he said, you can do it. And that was it. My mother is scolding me, day and night. It's problem in the family. When the music teacher music instructor who I had sent back home, I went and talked to him. I said, I want to take, you think music is so easy? You will fail. That was too much for my ego, I said, you just teach me what is taught in the class and leave the rest to me. If I fail or if I pass, that is my. So when the next day when I went to the music teacher, I said I want to take music. She said, I have to hear you sing. I have to Only two things I knew, alankar, sa re ga ma pa ma pa da ba da ni da ni. I only knew two. And she said sa re ga ma pa, but my notes were correct. When I was born with correct notes, I didn't have to learn notes. So when she said I have to take your interview or audition. So I went, and then as soon as I went, she would have asked me to sing what all, and I would have told her I don't know, I didn't know anything. And the principal called her. This is destiny, Dr. Henry, I'm trying to tell you. So the principal called her and she said, okay, you just sing two alankars for me and I will know whether you can learn music or not. So that is what I knew, so I sang and she was very impressed because my notes were correct. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa re ga ma pa ga re sa. And then sa re ga ma, sa re ga ma pa, these two I knew. And she said, okay, come to class next day. When I went to class next day, I don't know what they are singing because I don't know. I knew only sa re ga ma pa da ni sa and that's it. They are singing some music, the notation, Dr. Henry. I don't know whether they are singing the first line or the second line. And when I ask the students, they are laughing at me, because that was 12th standard I started music, na? And they had learned it from 10th and 11th. So that was my journey. And another very interesting thing, but my mother only said I will fail. So when the first exam was held, and the examiner came, I told my mother stand outside because if she came inside, she will make me nervous, and she already said you will fail. So when they hear me, you see, the examiner had come from a different city, the musical examiner. He said, he called all the students. And I whatever music I knew, I sang. He said, what the meaning of ruby is? Hira Javarat, precious gems. She is the precious gem of your college. I am not hearing that, no appreciation. I told those students, go tell this to my mother outside because she will not believe me. So I told them, go outside because she is glaring at me from the class, I can see. So, but that was my journey, and then classical music, and then I became the musician with all the blessings of my gurus and all.
So the difference then between sensual music and soul feeding music, how do you explain that to people who don't have an appreciation for it?
Appreciation for it. So the first test of it is that when you to appreciate classical music, you have to know a little bit. You have to be a little bit of you have to know classical music a little bit. Only then you will be able to enjoy classical music. But the Bollywood music or the folk music, that as soon as you hear, you enjoy. But the difference between that is when you hear a Bollywood song, you like it, you sing it, and then you forget it. It doesn't really leave a deep impression on you. But when you learn, when you hear classical music and you start knowing Indian classical music and the ragas and start hearing them, then you will see that they leave a deep impression on you.
Because sound has meaning.
Yes, the deep impression is the soul impression, and the sensual impression is the senses. You enjoy it, you dance with it, and then you forget it. And whenever that music, you will only dance with it, you will like it, it talks about romance. And again another thing which is very important, the Bollywood music, the literature, the words of the song are only romantic. So the mind is impressioned into a kind of an emotion, So they are already telling you that this is a romantic song and you have to be, which is a sad song, and it is, when of viraha. Viraha means when the boy leaves the girl and she is in, what you are called, tamanka here.
Yes.
So that is a music different. So they are already telling you the words impression the mind. So we are listening to the words more than the sound. But when you listen to just classical music, it is basically developing a sound. It is not really concentrating on the words. They have words, but instrumental music also, they are building upon that sound. And when you start linking yourself with the sound, then you understand. But it's a long procedure. But one day you understand that this sound is in sync with the universal sound, which is Om or which is Amen or which is whatever you say. So there is a sound which is vibrating in the universe. It is vibrating here also. But we need to train our ears. From the inner ear you can hear that sound. And in classical music that can happen.
That's so fascinating. So Dr. Mallik, you've been here for 16 years and you've met a lot of people. Who are some of those people that have made an impression on you, that you have a special relationship with? Talk a little bit about that.
Dr. Pat Bishop was the first one, Dr. Pat Bishop, I understood that how much love they have for Indian classical music, and I understood the value of Indian classical music, because we just learned it. When you come to a foreign land and you see people appreciating it, then you know that the music must be having something for people to value it. So this, and then anywhere where I went and sang, at least 70% of the people, could just made a bond with me. That is, so in my life, well, Dr. Pat Bishop, Ravi Ji is one person whom I owe a whole lot to him for being in the academy. And he is a thinker, a very, very soulful person, and always left a very deep impression. And I still talk to him, and he told me, that this is Patal Lok, Trinidad. According, we have different loks. So according to India, when they said when you start digging from India, when you reach Mexico and all, na? So he said this is Patal Lok, and probably, I had some karma here. Also, I also believe that why I came here. Look, many teachers came from Mahatma Gandhi. Every 3 years a teacher comes, but none of them have stayed for 16 years. And so there was an astrologer uncle I have. He had told me from before, you will never come back. So even so, I knew that, something had to happen, and then look, I got a job in UTT, and I had to leave my job in India. So there are some people who have been so close to me. I have a little neighbor, I see him since 4 months, and that child was my child from some lives, I understand that. And there have been many, many people who I had some karma with, I had some karma to resolve. That's why I stayed in this country. And look, like how Akash, I teach all my students. Many students have been, so some kind of, I had some issues to resolve, some kind of thing to give back.
Yes.
That is why I came here. And more I'm trying. Vasudevji is the one who is the spiritual head of the Blue Star Ashram, and he initiated me into meditation. Actually, it is a little thing. I was getting some real problems in work, in work with students and colleagues and all. And so I said, well, I went to him, and he told me to start meditating. And he said everything will resolve. I couldn't believe it. How can everything resolve? I am meditating, and all things around me how can it resolve? But it does. It does. And also, Dr. Henry, I must tell you, the Prime Minister, Mallik, when he first heard me, he told Professor Julian to write me a letter, I still have that letter in my purse and I can show you. He asked Professor Julian to write to me. He was so impressed by my music. So there was a piano person who was it, I don't know, he composed something, and the whole of the Academy for Performing Arts performed. Sonia and all were them, Nicole was there,
yes.
And then all of us had performed. So we got a little Indian piece to sing. And Prime Minister Malling was there. And look how he appreciated that music. I sang a raga, something to match with their music, what he had composed. Very nice, very good person. He's no more. Some pianist, probably you know the name. I'm forgetting. So he asked Professor, and Professor Julian wrote a very, very good letter to me. That was early,
yes.
back in the academy. So that is also a very good experience. Plus I can't really remember many people, but all of us think I'm selling. I made a relation with anyone and everyone who came to learn music. And another thing I must tell you, when I launched my first CD, people knew Dr. Ruby Mallik and all, sometimes in radio. But when I launched my CD first, Shivanjali, and then, after Shivanjali, what I did was to thank God for the success of it. I used to sing every month in a temple. I used to select a temple and go with my students and sing. It was a very good journey. I started. There, I used to meet some people, when they heard Dr. Ruby Mallik is coming to, and they would hug me and tell me they love my music so much. With my CD launch, and that is also I owe to Trinidad, If it was not for this love for bhajans in Trinidad, I wouldn't have composed the CD and sing the praises of God.
In the time that I've known you, I know that you take a lot of pride in your students. And I've heard you talk about two people, Akash and Nzinga. Do you want to talk about those two students?
Well, Nzinga calls me mother, She calls me mother. And Akash also is my son. Akash is my son, Well, he will carry on my job. I know that he will do it. He will. He knows now he knows the basics of music, and if he wants to teach, he will teach. And he will teach. At least he will teach the correct procedure. There is a procedure of teaching. And Nzinga, she is the. Well, I wish I had more African students. I didn't get them in my certificate in classical music. So if I had got them, it would, because I know that African students are, musical aptitude is very great, much more than our students. So that I didn't know. But at Nzinga, she analyzed the music so good, so well. And they appreciated the one chance I got to teach when Dr. Brown asked me to teach the students, that was the interaction. And would you believe, you can go and ask your students, you know them all. Some people, their headaches they come to my class and they say all the stress goes away. All the stress they come in from, they go. Some people, they said, no headache again. And then they started enjoying I told them to appreciate sound, in the music. And they used to cry, when you used to sing some ragas, they used to cry. And they said, they don't understand the words, they don't know anything, it is well, remember in Indian classical music, the raga system, the ragas have different moods, and when you sing them correctly, it impressions the mind of the listener.
Right.
Yes. So that happened, and that was a lovely class I had, and they still love me so much. And we used to eat some sweets, they loved all laddu and kurma and them, and
yes,
it was very nice. Yes.
So. You're heading back to India, and what are your plans for your post-Trinidad life?
Yes. Now the post-Trinidad life, that has already been planted by Vasudevji as I started meditating. Yeah, so I was telling you something, that he said, when you meditate, everything around you will resolve. I couldn't believe him. And he gave me some CDs, and I went through his CDs, it is an inner journey, it is called. And it happened, my whole life changed. Everyone, you are just surrounded by love. Because the one and the the strongest emotion of the universe is love,
Very true.
Love is the only emotion by which human being can survive and can progress and can live together and can interact with that love. Just as I say sound and light is the phenomena, love is also, because God is love, Who we know as the Supreme Person is just love. And that love started emanating from myself. And anyone and everyone started loving me, and everything changed. So now this journey, which is a very, very beautiful journey, I will be going to the Himalayas, and I will go into very deep meditation. I now meditate for 3 hours a day, but then that will be 13 hours a day at least, more than that.
Okay.
Because I want to do astral traveling, I want to know the whole universe, I want to know the universal phenomena, and I already know there is a space. What we call soul and all is a space. I could access that, and well, I will develop it more.
Okay. So the last thing, you've given me so much advice, so much teaching, so much new stuff to learn to feed my spirit. As we part, what advice do you have for me?
The best thing which happened, which happened with you, why I am telling you is that you understood what I was trying to tell you, and you understood that there is a music for soul and music for senses, and from the senses of music, look, that is the first step. You know, you like Bollywood music and you enjoy music, and then you want to know more about it, and then you go to the music which appeals to the soul, and then you know, then you understand everything. Life becomes very easy. The spiritual life doesn't mean that you just start praying and God. You start understanding the universal principles and live with that. And so your life becomes very easy. You know, that is it. So I understood that if you have understood that, you know, because I know you are a very good musician, Dr. Henry, and your students, I have heard you, when first I heard you, well, remember in the beginning it was just interaction and quarreling because you were the head of the, and then when somebody is the head of the institute, all the problems, you know, you go and you take and you know. But when I first heard you, Dr. Henry, when I first heard your students, remember I had come up to you and I had told you, Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Well, and I said, you know, well, your musical ability I only knew then, and everything changed with me and you know. I said, this person is a very good musician, good conductor, good. And anyone who appreciates and loves music, I know there are tears in your eyes and there will be tears in my eyes too, you know, my heart too. It is like this, you know. But Dr. Henry, you, if you understand the soul part of the music, you will be in sync with God, you know. I'm telling you. Remember, knowing, worshipping God and knowing about prayer and all is one part of it. But to be, you understand that space and understand and be in contact with God all the time. This is a song, well, I'm a Shiva devotee, and this song they gave me. Most of the songs, you know, this is, it says, Kan kan mein tum hi mere Shiv Shankar. In every particle you are there, Shiv Shankar. Tumse hi dhara mere Shiv Shankar. Because of you is the earth. Tumhe koti koti pranam mere Shiv Shankar. I bow to you 100 times, 1,000 times. Jai Jai Girijapati Shiv Shankar, and that Girijapati is he's the wife of Girija, Shivji. So this is a song in Yaman, which well I compose or they give me. I don't say I because there is no I really, you know. Kan kan mein tumhi mere Shiv Shankar, tumse hi dhara mere Shiv Shankar. तुम्हें कोटि प्रणाम मेरे शिव शंकर. जय जय गिरिजापति शिव शंकर. कण कण में तुम्ही मेरे शिव शंकर. तुमसे Madhyam, and I will sing one chant in Sanskrit for Shivji. It's Nagendra Haraya Trilochanaya You see, Sanskrit has a resounding sound, you know. Bhasmangaragaya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shuddhaya Digambaraya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya Nagendra Haraya Trilochanaya. This is Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a very good language, you know. Sanskrit is the language of gods, they say. It has resonance. So it resounds. Yes.
Dr. Ruby Mallik was an assistant professor at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, which she joined in 2007. She pioneered the teaching of and practice of Indian classical music at UTT as a coordinator of the Certificate in Indian Classical Music, Sangeet Prathama. Dr. Mallik was a dedicated member of staff and participated in outreach activities all over the country. She was a recorded singer and gave me 2 of her recordings. She was a gentle soul, and I would miss her humor and general good-natured personality. Dr. Mallik would often ask me to do various things for her that she couldn't do for herself in Trinidad and Tobago, and I always facilitated her. So much so that she referred to me as her godfather. Dr. Mallik returned to India this year, and I ensured that she was vaccinated properly before she left. And when she arrived, we spoke on more than one occasion. And she thanked me for everything that I had done for her. And I thanked her for being so good to Trinidad and Tobago and introducing to UTT Indian classical music. I would miss her, as I said.